All right, welcome to this episode of News Buzz. Today we're going to just look at a few headlines. You want to start off with the first one?
Yes, the first one I wanted to talk about is a tweet by Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last monarch in Iran, whose father was toppled by Iranian Popular Revolution back in 1979, and he has been very active in appointing himself as a representative of Iranian nation and going everywhere as representing the Iranian nation. Of course, he has been so detached from the society. He doesn't know how much he and his father and the whole heritage of the monarchy are hated inside Iran. So I think after Saudi Arabia and Iran had resumed relations, as part of the deal, Saudi Arabia promised to not to fund a lot of this, like basically Iran International TV channel, which was an insane anti-Iran propaganda channel, and probably some of these so-called self-proclaimed Iranian oppositions. And I think he needed to change his source of money, so because he's not receiving money from Saudi Arabia anymore, so he shifted to Israel, and he says that he's going to visit Israel upon an invitation from the Zionist regime to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust. And it's very funny. The statement says, quote, Pahlavi, the most prominent Iranian to visit Israel in history, seeks to renew ancient ties between Iran and Israel, honor Holocaust victims, and learn about Israel's innovative water tech, which basically means how Israel has managed to steal underground water resources from the countries around, Lebanon, Palestine, and other places. This is going viral, and Iranians are making fun of him and are laughing at how this is just ridiculous, when they are reminding him how his father's intelligence service was trained by Israeli Mossad intelligence service to torture Iranians, and how this is like alive in the memory of the collective memory of Iranians, and how they hate him.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is fascinating that you have this obvious, like, fake regime change agent just openly going to Israel, and any Iranian would see that. I mean, I thought Israel was universally hated by all Iranians, even though some people are more anti, like, revolution than others. So it's very confusing to me. I don't understand how any Iranian, no matter how much they like the Islamic Revolution, would appreciate the connection with Israel. It's interesting.
I would say there are very, very few people who would. Most people do hate Israel, and they have clear reasons to do so. Even during the Pahlavi had to pretend, at least to an extent, that they wanted to support Palestine because that was what the public wanted. And so the rhetoric that you see, the rhetoric of the Pahlavi before the revolution, shows that there were instances of supporting Israel or allying with Israel, but there were also times that they tried to talk about supporting Palestine because obviously they wanted to they would try to gain some support from within the Iranian public.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a propaganda fail, but I guess it never stops Israel from moving forward. Well, I'll talk a little bit about the attacks on Christianity over Easter, which is kind of interesting that it has like no coverage in the mainstream media here. But I mean, it's no surprise because one of the main I mean, the two main perpetrators of these attacks against Christianity are two of the top recipients of U.S. foreign aid. So in Ukraine, the Nazi-aligned or infiltrated or affiliated or the Nazi-esque regime, open with open descendancy from actual Nazis. Even though that's somehow controversial now to talk about, the Ukrainians are proud of their Nazi history, just like the Confederates are in the South, for the same reasons. They lost the war, and it's seen as a way of holding on to the past for hopes of future victories. That's why people fly the Confederate flag in the South. It's the same reason they fly the Banderite Nazi flags in Ukraine. But those same Nazis who are openly fascist, and the U.S. funds and has been funding for decades as a way of keeping a resistance army in their back pocket, those people are now openly destroying churches, 1,000-year-old. I mean, some of these are some of the oldest churches in Europe that are being destroyed. Hundreds and hundreds of years old at the least, some of these places, and kicking the priests out, killing people, insulting people. There's so many horrific videos of like just old ladies trying to go to church, and they're being spit on by these rabid, angry mobs, yelling insults at them, and these just psychopathic creatures on the other side of the fence from these peaceful church courtyards, yelling and insulting churchgoers, and overtaking the churches and destroying them. And then they take the icons and they take the religious art, and now that's being sold in Poland online. You can go on like the Polish version of eBay and find all these Ukrainian relics, and they say in the thing it just came out of Ukraine, so it's not even hiding it where they're getting these from. They're getting them out of the churches, and they're selling them immediately online. So it's basically kind of a ethnic cleansing of the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, openly, and apparently totally the West is totally cool with it. Which seems strange to me because it seems not aligned with the ideas of religious freedom here. So highly recommend anyone. Just go to Telegram and look it up. You'll find lots of people reporting from the ground.
Yeah, and they keep accusing Iran of mistreating Christians, which is very funny and ridiculous if you know how many churches are active inside Iran, and that Christians have representatives in the parliament, but nobody talks about those attacks on Christians in Ukraine.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Even, the idea of Jews and Christians living peacefully in Iran is totally impossible for the Western brainwashed minds to comprehend, because it's just an abusive gaslighting relationship that the Western public has with their governments. It's just a horrible situation, and probably the best example of that, if anyone wants to red pill themselves and thinks, what we're saying is insane, the best way you can start on the path to understanding the lies that your government and your media tells you is to look into the Israel-Palestine situation objectively. If you just Google it, you're going to find a lot of narrative traps that are meant to turn you back to the gaslighters. But if you go there, that's the best way. But if you read more about the facts and the history, you'll find that the U.S. just is supporting an ethnic cleansing campaign against the indigenous population in Palestine. Those indigenous people include Muslim Palestinians, Christian Palestinians. In fact, the original descendants of the disciples of Christ are Palestinian. It happened there in Palestine. So these people are the original. These are the blood lines of Christ's disciples, the Christians there, and they're completely ignored. And actually, the quote-unquote Christian community in America, who's Zionist, brainwashed by Zionism, believes they're much more loyal to the Zionists who've gone in there and occupied and ethnically cleansed the Christians from their lands than they are the Palestinian Christians, because they've been so dog whistled with the word Palestine. Whenever they hear that, they think terrorists. They don't think Jesus, because Jesus himself was a Palestinian by the Roman way of naming the people of that land. I mean, Rome called that Palestine. That was first century Palestine. Jesus was a first century Palestinian, even if he was ethnically what was his ethnicity? Anyway, some people say it was a political, it was a map, a regional designation by the Romans on their map. So by their censorship, in their census of the land, Jesus would have been a Palestinian. So the Christians don't think about that. Anyway, so we're in Easter season. So what better thing for the Israelis to do than attack old men and old women trying to go worship in the old city of Jerusalem? And there's some really horrific videos that have been going around. And I know this personally, having gone to the Easter services in the old city when I was allowed to go to Israel. To
occupy Palestine.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, occupied Palestine, which requires Israeli visa or permit, which I've now been denied because of.
Yeah, it needs visa from the occupiers. Yeah.
Occupiers, yeah. So the Israelis denied my visa ability to get a visa now, so I can't go in, because if you view the situation rationally, they really fear you because they know that you.
Especially if you're American.
A few drops of truth to break through the gaslighting. Like, you got to maintain a very good veneer of lies, or it can shatter. Yeah, and I'm an American. I mean, American doesn't matter to the Israelis at all. Like, if you're an American Palestinian and I have friends who are Palestinians born here, but they have a Hawiyah because they're ethnically from Palestine and they lived there, and so they have that. And if you give the border guard your U.S. passport, they know you're in their system. And I had a Palestinian friend who said the border guard took his U.S. passport and threw it on the floor, and said, I don't want that, and demanded his Palestinian ID because.
Wow.
So, and then for me, they don't care if I'm a U.S. citizen or not. Like, if there are Jewish spies here in the organizations here that spy on the Palestinian activists. They have it throughout all the networks of politicized Judaism in America. If you talk about Palestine, somehow you get on their lists, and it's, if anything, that's the most anti-Semitic thing. The most anti-Semitic people are the people who are working to do those things, because it definitely does not improve the position of ordinary non-politicized Jews. But anyway, there's a lot of videos we can, I guess, over this talking, we can play a few of them, and you can see how the soldiers just beat on people. And what they do is there are all these little alleyways or whatever that get into where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre or the various denominations. There's so many Christian denominations in the old city, so everyone has their place of worship, and they try and go there for Easter, and then they all want to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for various ceremonies throughout the Easter season. And the Israelis just block it down. So they'll go to these little alleyways, and they'll throw a bunch of these recruits in there to harass the people or prevent them from going. And so that's what the videos are. They're people who are just trying to walk to go to prayers, and then they get attacked and beaten by the soldiers. So,
we'll make sure we add
lived there for their generations since Christ. Their people have lived there. And then these soldiers, who are mostly people who were European descent, who moved in there for a couple of generations, or maybe even one generation, and or maybe with the Ethiopians, they bring in like not even a generation, and they going in there, and then they're like preventing these indigenous people from exercising their religious beliefs, and they're funded by U.S. tax money. So again, a really bizarre thing for a Western government to be. I mean, because they have all this thing about freedom of religion or whatever, but it doesn't. It's all just a lie.
Okay, so thank you for listening to another episode of Twice Told Tales podcast and the News Buzz series. Don't forget to share this video, to subscribe to our channel, and activate the notifications. See you soon in the next episodes.